Welcome to the Art and Hustle Podcast, a gallery of conversations, a space where you can hear all the amazing stories and life lessons of my guests. I'm your host, LindaLCheung, fashion designer turned multimedia artist, and I want to give you a space to tell your story. Welcome again to the Art and Hustle Gallery Conversation. This is going to be an unfiltered after podcast conversation, but today I want to talk about students that also have impacted your life.
Oh man, I have a list.
Also, and what's the secret to a happy marriage?
That's a whole nother podcast.
Because I need to know, because obviously I need some direction and advice in the men arena.
Living in separate parts of the house, having a daily level of inebriation. Okay.
See, I need a box of liquor. I need a box of wine.
Really? No, I'm just teasing. No, we're going to talk about the student thing. That's what you corralled me into. So there.
I know. I'm like constantly corralling you into these podcast conversations. I need all the wit and wisdom of Mr. Schiavo.
Okay. Well, listen. I have a lot of them for different things. I've learned, and one of the great things about being a teacher, any place, and most teachers will admit to it, they learn an awful lot from their students, especially if they're ready, willing, and able to listen to those students.
Yeah.
And going back to our previous conversation about race and stuff, and racism in schools and things like that, I learned so much about race that, especially from my Black students.
Yeah.
I've also learned a lot of stuff about Asian culture from my Asian students, Indian students and Chinese students.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's been a wonderful learning experience for me. Now, it's funny because I was always into cultural anthropology. Okay. So like was one of I used to read a lot in cultural anthropology. I majored in English. I minored in theology and philosophy because at St. John's in those days you had to. Okay.
Yeah.
But one of my avocations for reading, and by the way, I started reading more nonfiction as I got older. I read all the fiction I felt I needed to read and wanted to read. But anyway, but nonfiction I also use because it would help make my discussions and lectures in class I think more interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course my interest in cultural anthropology made it easy for me to be very, very curious and accepting of my multicultural students when I was teaching high school.
And you also traveled a lot too, so you had some.
Oh, absolutely. Right? I mean, I've been to play. In fact, it's funny. We have these digital picture frames.
Yeah.
And we have them all over the house, right? And so I'll look at them, and my wife and I say, like, we've been to so many places.
Yeah.
We've forgotten where we've been, really, And so when we look at some of the places, she'll say, "But where was that?" I happen to have a better memory for that stuff than she does.
Yeah.
So that was where that was in Japan. That was on Sakurajima Island, which was a volcanic island, or that was in Bratislava in Hungary. We had ice cream over there, and it was really kind of a neat little city, but it was very, I don't know, cozy. I mean, we've been all over Western and Eastern Europe. We've been all over Asia, Southeast Asia. Mainland China. I've been to Hong Kong about 4 times, and all over French Polynesia. I mean, I can list the places I love for French Polynesia.
I feel like traveling is a definite tip to give to our viewers. To make sure you travel, because just traveling outside of the United States is a huge learning experience. I mean, when I was younger, I traveled to China twice when I was young because we had to go for both of my grandmother's funerals.
Okay, right.
So both times I was super young and I went over there, and it's a huge cultural shock because I came here when I was 3 years old. So to go back to China, where it's like stone houses, dirt roads, barely any electricity. And the funny thing is that they had like food delivery service, but you literally got like bowls and plates and real silverware, and they would deliver it to your house. I was like, wow, this is like crazy. There was no hot water. You had to boil your hot water.
But you know what's fascinating about? I mean, we were all over China because they
Yeah.
usually when you take trips uh, to China, they'll start you up north and up by Beijing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then of course we had to do when we were there. I guess we were there for 3 weeks or so, and we had to do five intra-China flights. Okay,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
to get to from one place, because you're
yeah.
going to these different big cities, Shanghai and
Hmm.
Xi'an, where the terracotta warriors are,
Yeah.
and
Oh, I need to see that. There's a lot of places in
Shanghai.
China I haven't been, but
But
yeah, I need to go.
you know what you'll find fascinating too, being coming out of a Chinese restaurant background.
Hmm.
When you go into these different regions and you go into
Yeah.
these different restaurants and stuff,
Yeah.
it's fascinating the kinds of varieties of food.
Yes. Yes.
It's I mean, it seems like China has inexhaustible
Right.
differences in
Yeah.
cuisine
And then you
all over.
have dialects because no one would know that I speak a different type of, dialect Chinese than, the main ones. The main ones are Mandarin and Cantonese, but I speak Fuzhou.
Okay, see, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And yeah, but wait a second. So, but if someone's speaking, how you do though? Can you understand Cantonese, or
No,
maybe
unless you know Cantonese, you won't be able to understand it. So
is that right?
Cantonese, Mandarin, and Cantonese are completely different language. Fuzhou person would not be able to understand a person who only speaks Mandarin and Cantonese. They would not be able to understand each other because they're completely different languages. So a lot of people in China who speak Fuzhou, the dialect of it, the smaller village, city dialect of it, you would also need to learn the main one, which would be Mandarin.
See now, look, I know in Europe, I mean that's true of any place you go. For example, in Italy, I'll never forget it. You'll go there, and if you're in the big cities like Rome or Florence, and you speak what they would consider formal Italian in Rome and in Florence,
Mm-hmm.
you're fine.
Yeah.
But you go to another place. I'll tell you a place that I used to go crazy because I just said, wait a second, it's like a different language. It
Oh.
was Venice. All of a sudden, have a different dialect in Venice where
Oh, really?
they'll understand Rome, what I would call, let's say, Roman Italian. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, or
Yeah.
Florentine Italian. But they if you speak, because remember that's what I learned. I learned
Yeah.
so so but they can understand you, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then but what'll happen is like they'll tell you, well, we say the word for key is this. It's
Yeah.
chiave in Rome. Then they'll say in Venice they might have another word for key. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So
So that's like another whole, that's like Fuzhou. That's like another dialect.
yeah, and all the European countries, they all have their little dialects.
Mm-hmm.
It's very France. We've been
Yeah.
studying
Yeah.
this.
That's super. I mean, super interesting. Yeah. Like no one would really know where Fuzhou is. It's like, it's between, I was looking at the map. I was going to send it to you. It's between, I want to say Hong Kong and Shanghai. And it's like southern. So it's close
Uh,
to Taiwan.
right. I love Shanghai. Shanghai was to me, it was when I was there, I called it a 21st century city. It's probably a
Yeah.
22nd century city.
Yeah.
It's fast. It's a fascinating city.
Yeah. Did you ever see
And
the modern movie Crazy Rich Asians?
oh yeah, oh for sure.
I thought that was awesome. I love that.
Well, you would,
Of
but
course. I mean, it's like finally a funny,
yeah,
mainstream
sure.
Asian movie
Yeah,
that doesn't make us look like, martial artists
I know.
and Chinese restaurant, owners,
Yeah,
like
now you see, the cultural anthropologist in me is loving this conversation, but again, you wangled me into having a conversation about CI students. Just to remind you.
well, I just want to let everybody know when me and Miss Schiavo have conversations, we'll talk about this and then it goes to this sidebar and this sidebar. But I mean, all of it is relevant, all of it is interesting, and all of it pertains to life, right?
But it also speaks to the fact, like I said before, what I've learned from you and Li Ming, your sister, about things Chinese and cultural and stuff over the
Yeah,
years, and my black students from different islands, and
yeah,
my Latino students, and it because again going to talk about language, I learned what would be, I guess, considered Castilian Spanish, and
yeah.
yet so many of my students, I would try to talk to them in my textbook Spanish,
Oh, okay.
and they would laugh at me because
Really?
I said, "Well, what are you laughing at?"
Yeah.
Well, we don't say it that way,
Oh,
or your accent is so different.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
when I use the Spanish at all, I use the Castilian lisp. But they go, like I
Hmm.
say, you'd say, what would you say, like, whatever the words are. But it would be uh, uh, the, and of course the reason for the lisp is there was the story is that there was some Spanish prince, and he had a lisp, and so the parents made it like mandatory that Spanish would speak like the kid, with a
Oh,
lisp.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't
See,
know.
that's yeah,
I don't know if that story is true or not. I know
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
but
interesting.
anyway, yeah. So they, and of course it was really funny because then they'd say, well, how come it's not the word that I just used? Well, I'm from Ecuador, and then
Yeah.
I found that the Guatemalan kids take that same word and they use a different word. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
then the kids from Puerto Rico use it. I mean, I have a landscape crew comes in. I love them. They're just great young men,
Yeah.
but each one comes from a different. Like one comes from San Salvador, one comes from Ecuador, one comes from Guatemala,
Yeah.
and they were always telling me what words they say, like the word for rake. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, they each have a different word for rake.
Oh, see, that's super interesting.
Well, it is. I mean, I really get a big kick out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I just love stories and I just love different, why people do things, So that's why I love these podcasts because even just random conversations is, informative.
So meanwhile, though, you're telling me that you've spoken to some of my all-time favorite students.
Yes, I spoke to Susie Sarujini,
Right.
from CI also. And what did you think of that podcast? Because I did two of them. I did part one and part two.
I watched them both, and I had a smile on my face from beginning to the end.
Mhm.
I couldn't, I just so enjoyed watching and listening to the two of you. You have no idea.
But then we were
No
just chatting. We weren't really trying to stick to a
idea.
format because
First of all,
mhm.
let's get this straight.
Yeah,
I always called her Sarujini. I
yeah,
never called her Susie. I'll
yeah,
bet if you ask her, I don't think she'll ever remember her calling,
yeah, yeah,
And same thing with your sister. Once your sister Donna said, I said, what's your name in
yeah,
Chinese? Li Ming.
yeah,
I always call her Li Ming. To this
yeah,
day, I call her Li Ming. And
yeah.
my wife knows her as Li Ming.
As Li Ming? Okay, that's funny.
In fact, she's been to the house a couple of times over the years.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loves you.
So I love her too. She's like she's special. And I have stories to tell about her too. Anyway, but with Sarujini, the story I always tell about Sarujini, I think I told it to you, is she was in, I always say she was in a junior class.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know why I think that. She
Hmm.
might have been in my senior class, but a couple of weeks in, she hadn't said a word in my class.
Mm-hmm.
And and I looked at her. I said, "Well, this is a very striking looking young woman. She's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
pretty and
yeah.
nicely put together and the whole 9 yards.
Hmm.
But I haven't heard her say it. So anyway, I asked a question. I
Yeah.
really have to ask her if she remembers that question. She might. I asked her a question, and it was pretty. It was not an easy question. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
is it sunny out today? It was some philosophical thing.
It's a philosophical question, of course,
And
coming from your classroom.
anyway, so I asked the question of the class, and they're all looking at me like I just grew a second or third head. It's either that or my fly was open, one of the two. All right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
right.
Teachers,
So
teacher, teachers, worst fear, right?
absolutely. So, so, by the way, she pipes up. And by the way, I wasn't big on having kids raise their hands
Yeah.
because I always felt it wasn't natural. In other words, if I'm
Mm.
sitting with a bunch of my friends and we're, having a
Yeah.
beer or two and we're
Yeah.
talking, we're
You're
not
not like,
raising our hands.
I want to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah, we're not doing that. And so, and my feeling was, and then of course with me, they started to learn that if they didn't break in with a comment, I
Mhm.
would talk for 45 minutes with that nonstop. So
Yeah.
they had to stop me, right?
Yeah.
And I told them that's the way you're going to stop me. You're going to have to break in. And I have a comment. So
Interject.
yeah, so she ants basically after the silence in the classroom, she finally opens up and gives me this answer. Again, I don't remember the content. I just remember thinking, "Oh my God, this girl, she's been sitting here this whole time, never said a word, and she's
Yeah.
freaking just brilliant. She's intelligent. She's and articulate and just right on top of it, right?"
Yeah.
So I do remember. I believe it was that day. When the class ended. Uh, when the class ended, I asked her to stay after class for a second.
Mhm.
And I talked to her and I just said, my goodness, I said, you've been quiet for so long, but man, you're really, I gave her all kinds of compliments. I mean, man, you are really smart and that was a great answer. And
Mhm.
bip, 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 bip. And from that day on, I always felt like I discovered her. And I think I said it, I know I said it to you before about her.
Yeah.
I felt like I discovered her. I felt like a guy who just, it was serendipity when
Yeah.
I discovered her.
Mhm.
The guy who falls over a boulder and is flat on his face, and then he looks up and he sees a pot of gold in front of him. It's like, oh my God, that was how I felt
Oh
about
my
her.
God, you're pretty and you got brains.
Yes, but I felt like I had this found treasure
Yeah.
when I first met her, and then
Mhm.
subsequently we always had, I mean, nice conversations, and she was always I always expected and got really smart comments from her and perceptive
Yeah.
comments, and I
Yeah.
remember calling her an old soul. I said,
Mhm.
hey, you're an
Yep.
old soul.
Mhm.
I mean, she was so far more mature
Yeah.
given her age. I just was flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Flabbergasted.
Yeah.
I have nothing bad to say about Sarojini. Nothing.
Yeah, because I mean, like she felt, I mean, like we're having a conversation where she just felt like she didn't really connect with the students. She's just like, I don't understand what you guys are doing. I don't understand you. I'm trying to, but like she just didn't have that connection. So yeah, definitely old soul.
But what's it shows you sometimes how clueless I can be and how I don't want to call it naive, but just clueless. Just not
Mhm.
I don't is the fact that with your sister and with you and with Sarojini,
Yeah.
given your Asian backgrounds, uh, I kind of knew in general terms how women were treated and what was expected of them in those cultures.
Yeah.
But I never really understood until I really started talking with you guys. Okay.
Oh, really? Like the extent of it?
Yeah. And about how, there was so much um, indifference to your thoughts
It's like
and
repression. It's like, is it right?
yeah, I just, it's funny because I have to say, like with my sister, I just got on the phone with my sister, okay, and she lost her husband a couple of weeks ago.
I'm sorry.
And yeah, she was, but anyway, and he taught at CI, but uh, she was very. We all communicated in our house, okay,
Yeah.
and she was all very, it was very chatty, and she
Yeah.
was not in any way uh,
Repressed of like her
well,
voice.
not in any way disrespected. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
she would speak up, and
Yeah. Yeah.
but she was always, but no, she was my younger sister, and of course,
Yeah.
as an Italian American boy, I got all the juice,
Yeah,
and
yeah, but they still listened to her. She still had a voice, even though you
yeah,
had
yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And they made sure that I was that I had I respected had to respect her, and also made me protective. I was protective of her
Mhm.
growing up. She was my
Yeah,
younger
yeah,
sister,
yeah,
and
yeah,
all my male friends, I used to say, I said, well, no, stay away from him, stay away from that one over there. Forget that.
yeah,
But I think that with Asian females, it's way. I think I found out that it was way more intense than I thought.
yeah. It's super. I mean, that's super interesting that you found that out just talking to us. I mean, like because the basis of Asian culture back in the days is that it was like a one child rule, and
Right.
eventually women they didn't want women. They just wanted all men, and women were looked down upon. If you had a girl. A lot of them were put on the roads, they were killed, or they thought that I was going to be a boy. They really wanted a boy, which
Sure.
in turn in
Sure.
Asian culture, they give a lot of the girls male names. So my
Right.
middle name, my Chinese name is Song. So that's a male strong name. And
Uh-huh.
that means to soar above the skies. But they added Li in front of it. So it's Li Song. But they wanted boys and they wanted, and all the girls were ignored, non-existent, not important. Anything you say is, irrelevant because you're a female, so it's not important. And you should just sit there, be quiet, and basically be invisible.
One of the things I've always enjoyed about Chinese culture is that they, partly because of my literary background, one of the things I used to do about um, when I'm interpreting books and things with students was the fact so I remember these names are may mean something. Okay,
Yeah.
so but used to talk about name symbolism. Okay, Uh, I mean, for example, the famous one now for modern books is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and the nurse's name is Ratchet, which
Mm,
is, of course, if you slow it down, it's rat shit. Okay, because she was
right.
a real meanie, right?
Yeah.
Real meanie.
Yeah.
And I always call my wife Nurse Ratchet. When she's at her, how shall I say, less
Mm, hmm.
affectionate best. I go, oh, dude,
Yeah.
that Nurse
Yeah.
Ratchet's come out, right?
Yeah.
But again, I know
I'm
that.
sure she loved that, right?
Yeah, oh, please. So, so, but I look, for example, what I kind of learned was that when Chinese parents name their kids, they try to name them what they want them to become.
Yeah.
So if you're a girl, they'll name me something about wise and beautiful, or
Yeah.
smart and sweet, or smart and whatever. I mean, and same thing with boys. They have the strong,
Yeah.
like strong
Yeah.
names.
There's always a meaning. Yeah.
Well, like for example, Li Ming says she told me Max's Chinese name, something to do with a dragon.
Yeah. Mm,
What is
Feilong.
it?
Feilong.
Yeah, but what does it mean? It's exactly what,
I think it's
flying dragon or something?
flying. I think it's flying dragon. Yeah. Yeah. Flying dragon.
I mean, come on, what a cool name for a kid, for a boy.
Yeah. And it's Maximilian. I mean, like how much
Sure.
strong name, you know, Maximilian,
Exactly.
and then you got Flying Dragon.
A-
Like
a-
those are super strong names.
Yeah, and I think, like, see, now my name, I was named William. Okay,
Yeah.
why? Because they wanted me to be, like William the Conqueror, was somebody who was going to be victorious in life,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
strong
Yeah.
and courageous, all these different things, and
Yeah.
I was supposed to grow into that name as I learned what it
Yeah. Yeah.
was about. So,
Yeah.
and Max, I'm sure, will do the same thing.
Hmm.
So that's really great. But I think what was interesting too is one of the reasons why I started to realize over a period of years why you ladies responded to me the way you did was because I was a male who said, "I'm listening to you.
Yeah.
I'm
Which
listening
is,
to you, and
complete opposite of our home life.
I'm listening to you. I want to hear what you have to say. I
Yeah.
want to hear what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I want to know what you're feeling." And
Hmm.
that's I what I started to realize over a period of time was you don't get that at home. You see?
No, not at all.
No. And you may not even get that in the surrounding culture because the men in your life probably, well, they expect you to be what you're like at home. Like, hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're a woman, back off.
Yeah. Exactly. And my sister being the middle child, I mean, she had a tougher um I want to say like relationship with the other male like cousins because there
Sure.
were three we had three male cousins who went to East Side, so all super smart. They
Yeah.
all went to Harvard. And then we have my brother who's like the same age too, so he's super smart. And then my sister, she's very academic also, so she was always proving and trying to compete with them, but like, listen, don't discount me just because I'm a female.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
just as smart as you guys. And so it was hard for her to be able to fight
Mm.
that, you know.
I always was impressed by the fact she was so poised.
Hmm.
Okay. She
Yeah.
was so, again, another one like Sarujini where really mature, really knew how to deal with people. And, we used to do these interviews, and I used to talk with my seniors, if you might recall. Uh, and I used to tell this to uh, my college students. I said, look, if you're teaching seniors,
Mhm.
most seniors, as far as they're concerned, school's over around Christmas vacation. In other words, after that first semester, and all other grades are in, and they've got accepted to their colleges.
Yeah.
As far as
Yeah.
they're concerned, it's all about the prom. It's
Yeah.
all about party time.
let's,
Yeah, it's all
yeah, let's
about
have some
party
fun
time.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about we're having fun, 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 fun. And even my best classes could become a little more raucous, a little more unruly.
You're
All they
like,
want
we're
to do
not
is
listening to you
yeah,
anymore,
right,
Captain.
yeah, yeah. We have, yeah, but I used to tell them, I said, look, we have had colleges call up the guidance department and say the third quarter grades were sucky, and we may have to rescind
Really?
yeah, oh yeah, we
Really?
had that happen a couple. Oh,
Wow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't I wasn't lying about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so here's what I did. This brings me back to Lee Ming. I would say, you know what? I would start talking about going on interviews for college
Yeah.
and or jobs.
Yeah.
So I would do a whole thing on interviews, a unit on interviews, and then let's say a unit on etiquette in general for the prom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
so how do you dress for the interview? What do you do?
Yeah.
What don't you ask? What do you
Yeah.
ask?
Yeah.
So forth and so on. Right. And then also for the prom, I said, look, you're going to be probably go to a formal dance and formal dinner, and you should be able to know which fork is you're going to use and what.
Etiquette, yeah, which I don't think kids really were taught
Well,
any of that.
no, because a
Yeah,
lot of them weren't getting it at home. Okay,
no, yeah.
believe me. Okay, what did they
Yeah,
know?
because it's a different culture. There's a lot of different cultures, and a lot of them are first generation.
I taught, so I used to teach a whole thing on etiquette, how to answer a phone properly, yeah,
Wow,
how
that's
to send
amazing.
how to send something known as a bread and butter letter. And they said, what's a bread and butter letter? I said, well, somebody like your friend's mother invites you to home for dinner,
Yeah,
and then so you a bread and butter note is a slang term for a thank you note
yeah, yeah.
for having. In fact, I'm getting a call from Shanghai, China, right now. It's
No, really?
No, I'm serious. It says it. It's not funny. It's obviously a scam call, So
Those
how about that?
Chinese people.
Really? They still remember they
They're
still remember
ruthless.
me from when I was there. They still remember
Yeah,
me from when I
yeah,
was there.
yeah, yeah. Don't answer those.
No, yeah. In fact, one of the best Italian meals I ever had was in Shanghai.
Oh yeah, you told me that. It's
Yes, that's
amazing.
what, yeah.
That is
Actually, it
crazy.
was at some hotel too. I was with some people on our
I
tour,
want to
and
know who's cooking it back there.
really, it was a phenomenal dinner. Phenomenal. Anyway,
Yeah,
I digress. But so my point was that uh, Li Ming was so used to dealing with customers at the restaurants of all
yeah,
kinds of stuff,
yeah.
and when she did we did interviews for scholarships
Hmm.
at the high school,
Yeah,
and when she came in, she did exactly what I thought she'd do. And the responses from my colleagues were wonderful because they said, "Oh my God, she's so kind of classy and poised, and she really knows what to do and how to speak." And I said,
yeah,
"Oh yeah, you know, I
yeah,
said she's terrific, okay."
yeah,
And she had that ability. She had
yeah,
really had that ability.
yeah.
And this is what's so interesting. How again, I guess the background at the restaurant was really helpful because you're dealing with all
Yeah,
kinds of.
and it's funny. I think like everybody should work in the food industry because, I mean,
If you
for,
want to
for
know about
yeah,
real abuse, and really hard work, that's what you
yeah,
need.
like everyone should work in service industry. I mean, me as a kid, I had to learn that because I basically grew up in the restaurant, and I had to learn how to answer the phone properly, had to greet the
Sure.
customers properly, had to get the orders, how to deliver food. So like there would and be a waitress and how to greet people at a table. So there was many aspects where I had to learn how to talk to people.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you realize that if you ever start dating somebody, you need to make sure that the person you're dating is kind to waiters and service people.
oh, please,
you know
absolutely, absolutely. In fact, my wife has a friend who is not not pleasant to wait staff,
mm,
and I'm
mm-mm.
thinking, wait a second. And see me, I'm funny. You know my motto: if you schmooze, you cruise. If you snooze,
Yeah,
you lose.
yeah,
Uh, I will talk to them. I always want to know their names, and I'll be a little chatty.
yeah,
And by the way, I don't have to be, but I'm just thinking I'm always interested in you know why they're there, doing what they're doing, and
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
And plus, you just I don't know. I just being decent to people, but I think that
It's funny. I do that to people who call, like if I'm calling, like I don't know, Verizon or something. The people who have to call and talk to them because now everything's like virtual. I'll do the same thing to people on the phone, and actually, I will get people like laughing hysterically, and they're just gonna be like, "Oh my god, thank you, you made my day."
yes. And Linda, I have done the same thing. Well, my wife gets hysterical with me because
Yeah,
she was listening to these phone calls. So who's that? What friend is that you talk to?
yeah.
Talk to the customer service person on American Express. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
doing.
yeah, exactly. I think I was talking
I
here's one funny story. I was talking to somebody, I think either Verizon or something, and she was trying to help me. I was trying to like do something with her, and it came to a point where we were trying to figure out. I made a joke to a reference of like Eastern Standard Time or Western or whatever.
right,
And I told her, I was like, I never remember which one I'm in. I don't know if I'm in Eastern or
right.
Western. And I was like, you know what? I should really break it down to East Coast, two, it's like a rap thing, Tupac and Biggie. So I was like, oh, there's the East Coast rival and there's the West Coast rival. I should just break it down that way. So I was joking with her, and she's like, oh my God, you just made my day. Thank you so much.
Excuse me. What second? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Have fun. Okay. Um, my wife's going out to lunch with some
Oh,
people.
nice. But
That's
yeah,
right.
like the person on the phone, just she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like I never thought of it that way too. But obviously I knew you can tell by her voice that she was
Yeah.
black. But the fact that, me telling her that, I just
Yeah.
thought it was hysterical.
I do that all the time, but my wife gets a stuff. And what she does now is every time she has a problem with, let's say, uh, she needs to have customer service
You
call,
have to call, right?
I call. Yeah,
Yeah.
she goes, "Oh, I mean, this is my husband. He's going to do business for me, you know." But because you know what it is too,
Mhm.
she is no, she's no nonsense.
Yeah.
Just a fax, ma'am, just a fax. And but
Yeah.
me, I'll kibitz. I'll like you. I'll make them laugh. And here's
Yeah.
what you find out. They're so used, customer service people are so used to being, people yelling at them and complaining.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you're nice and you make them laugh, they're going, "Oh my God." And as a consequence, not
Mhm.
only do they help you, they will
Yeah.
give you more benefits if they can give them to you. So
Yeah,
that's what they
yeah.
do.
And sometimes one of them, they'll just be like, how are you doing today? I was like, I am spectacular. How are you? And they'll be like,
Well,
thank you. I've never,
well,
never heard that before.
what is it I always say to you when you say, "Hey, how are you?" And
Yeah.
how you doing? And I'll say, "I'm my usual magnificent self. Thank you
Mhm.
for asking. Why
Yeah.
should I change a winning formula?"
Yeah.
And people go, "Well, who the hell does he think he is?" I mean, whatever. But the
They're
fact
probably
is,
definitely taken aback by that, right? They don't
yeah,
hear
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. But egotistical, whatever. But the point is that it's also something that kind of sets a different tone. Okay,
Hmm.
which brings me back to Chinese. By the way, one of the things I'm fascinated by is that a little slight change in tone is a whole different word. Okay, or I can give
Yeah.
it a whole different meaning, right?
Yeah.
But meanwhile, you were supposed to be asking me about former students of mine.
Yes.
But wait, uh, I'm not finished with Sarujini yet because I watched. It was like an hour and a half's worth or 2 hours worth. And what I kind of found fascinating was I still look at you guys and I'm thinking, my God, they look the same way they looked when they were in my high school class.
Hmm.
Bright and
Yeah.
pretty and
Hmm.
justified. But I'm smiling the whole time. And I'm kind of fascinated by Subhashini because what I thought about her future kind of came to fruition.
Mm.
Um, she obviously bright and obviously perceptive and willing to know her own mind and not
Yeah.
do necessarily what was expected of her, you know?
Yeah.
And I just think she's had a very, very, as a consequence, a very interesting and varied life experience and a professional experience. I mean, I know she was doing some screenwriting for a while,
Yeah.
and now she's doing. I guess what she's doing is ad advertising.
Advertising, writing. Yeah. I think
Yeah, yeah.
ad writing.
And yeah, and she's one of those people who could just do anything and be anything she wants to
Yeah.
set her mind to.
Completely. Completely. Yeah.
But again, talk about together, talk about poise and articulation and things like that. It's just like, and again, I think about this in terms of, you said it before probably, but I'm very paternalistic about you guys. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? You're
Hmm.
like you're like my if I often would say to my wife, I said, if I could have, if I could have Sarojini or Li Ming or you as my daughters, I'd just be so proud. I would
Yeah.
just be so proud and
Uh,
so happy.
well,
Really?
I really, really appreciate that because for us who don't, we would never hear that from our parents. So
Really?
the fact that you watch these videos and then you've seen us basically grow up,
Right.
right, to the
Yeah.
women that we are. So that makes us feel
But
means a lot to us.
but here's where my ego comes in.
Mhm.
Okay? I say to myself, I said it when I was watching you and Sarujini, but I've said it about some of the other people you mentioned and you. Okay, my God, I was so right about them.
Mhm.
In other words, my assessment was so on the money,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
on the money. Okay,
yeah.
and sometimes like people miss the point. I think I mentioned a study. I forget talking to you. I don't know whether it was on the phone with you or whether it was on a podcast about how they had done a study, some bunch of studies years ago
Mhm.
about whether parents or teachers were the best estimators
Mm,
of their children's futures
future.
and
Yeah.
success. And generally, what they found was that the teachers were better at it than the
Mm,
parents
yeah, yeah.
because parents say. again, it's like when you're married. After a while, when the blush goes off the rose and stuff,
Yeah.
you start to see some of the rougher edges of the person
Yeah.
that you
When
marry.
you're living with them, right?
Yeah, when you're living cheek by jowl, man, it
Yeah.
gets, it can get ugly, right? And the same thing is true with parents and their kids. They say, well,
Yeah.
they'll say things to their kids probably what that they shouldn't say. Or they'll see their kids, they'll view them as being lazy about something, or they'll view them as being, disorganized or about something.
Yeah.
When in fact, their teachers might think kind of the opposite when
Yeah.
they're in their classrooms and watching them around the school building doing whatever they're doing, they get a different view.
Yeah.
Plus we teachers will have conversations with students
Yeah.
that
Parents are
for,
not.
they're not doing,
Yeah.
and also for those of us who teach high school, we're having very adult conversations about adult stuff that
Mhm.
most parents feel uncomfortable talking to with their
And,
children.
and a lot of these parents are immigrants, so they're not used to having this open communication with their kids.
Oh, you're absolutely right about that. It's funny. I don't you see. You mentioned that. I don't always think. I didn't always think about it that way. About
Yeah,
the-
listen,
yeah,
like
yeah,
majority of my friends, their parents are not speaking to them
yeah,
the
yeah.
way open communication that you
And
do.
yeah, I think that was fascinated by that when you were talking to Sarojini about how you both seem to have a similar
Yeah, childhood.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I Uh, see, my my family was different. There was a lot of communicating going on,
Yeah.
like in Italian families, especially in
Yeah.
my family.
Yeah.
A lot of communicating, and by the way, a lot of it was loud. In
Yeah.
other words,
Yeah.
you always knew, you always knew who was in a bad mood,
Hmm.
who's in a good mood. There was a
Yeah.
lot of laughter, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of shouting about, hey,
Yeah.
they always let you know
Hmm.
what what was up, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but it was super informative and eye-opening, and to be able to connect again with Susie and speak about our past of being Asian American girls, women in that household, because even though we went to high school together, we never spoke about these topics of how it affected us
Uh-huh.
until that podcast.
Right.
So for us to speak upon that, and also how it affects us mentally, for like
Sure.
depression to
Sure.
being
Sure.
numb to growing up, and then it affects our relationship with men too,
Yeah.
and
Oh
adulthood.
God, yeah. Sure.
So it was really great to talk about that, because we realized like how much similar childhood we had, where if you like literally, like even though like you respected the fact that we are very poised in school and act proper, but that was drilled upon us at home.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That was forced, like you have to act this way.
Sure.
And
Sure.
we honestly, like me, like I realized like now it's a superpower of mine, because now I can be empathetic and I can read the room and I can read people's mannerisms and read
Right.
people's faces more now as an adult.
Right.
And now I can, like, but it's super hard as a kid because you're taught to be perfect. So when you get into public, into social situations, it becomes hard and debilitating, because you're like, oh my God, I have to be perfect. I have to act
Well,
a
I
certain
mean,
way.
there's a whole genre of psychology that kind of deals with this stuff. In the 70s, especially, there was a movement, what they call transactional analysis. Okay,
Hmm.
and and really what the comments are and what the messages are between people when they speak, and especially with parents to their children. So, for example, one of the most common ones is when you're a kid is that there's the be perfect message. They want
Yeah,
you to be perfect. Well,
yeah.
hey, there is no such thing on the
There's
planet.
no such thing as perfection.
And one of the things that I had to learn was no, I couldn't be perfect
Yeah,
because perfect was unrealistic. There's no
yeah,
perfection on the planet. That
yeah,
exists in what Plato would have called the world
yeah.
of forms.
It's funny. I have a crayon story about me getting over that part. I'll tell you after.
Okay, really, but I mean, but that's the kind of stuff that young people have to beat,
Mhm.
um, and then and it's very very tough because parents that say, well, I want my kid to be perfect.
Yeah,
Well, no, and they say because and it starts from infancy.
yeah,
The
yeah,
the infant pops out of mom.
yeah,
The first thing is, the father or mother will say, well, how's my infant? Oh, it's he or she is perfect. Okay.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then it starts from there. And then, of course, they start to believe it, and they start to want you to be continue to be perfect. Well, that's just
Mhm.
not how it works.
Yeah, like
And
if you're nitpicked by everything you do as a kid, it's hard to just be you and be okay with it, because you'll constantly have that unconscious like childhood where you're like, oh, am I doing it wrong, or am I doing something that will make somebody else get angry, or am I doing, like you constantly have this like chip on your shoulder and like feed in your back of your head unconsciously.
but I mean, I think that this is one of the things too. How working with different kinds of students from different kinds of backgrounds is again going back to the fact that teachers sometimes learn more about real stuff from their
Yeah,
students
yeah,
than the students learn from them. Like for example, now I'm going to be very interested to see your interview with Trisha,
yes,
because now as a young black woman, I there were things about her I remember clearly. Okay,
hmm,
and again, uh, like a lot of you, bright,
yeah,
funny. She was
yeah,
totally funny. Okay,
yeah.
I used to, and she made fun of me all the time.
Wait, did she say something to you in the classroom?
And, are you gonna read the story I told you about?
I don't remember. I don't remember exactly, but I just remember you vaguely telling me there was a story that she had said something to you funny in the classroom.
I really want to tell you, but I probably shouldn't. You know the story. I'm okay. I know it, but no. But I mean, but here's another thing. That's another thing that talk about. She came from a family that was, I think, a family of ministers. Okay,
Mhm, mhm.
and of course, and among, I didn't always talk about sex and politics. I also talked about religion,
Yeah.
and we used to have some really, really interesting discussions in her class because she had other friends of hers who were also Christians and
Mhm.
were into it, and devout and
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
I used to tell them, I said, and I think she was in a gospel group, and they sang out. We had a fire drill one time, and they sang out in the outside to keep everybody,
Really? Oh,
yeah,
really? Yeah.
and they were spectacular.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was spectacular. I said to
Yeah.
one of my other students who was white,
Yeah.
I said, man, I love that music. I said,
Yeah.
that's terrific. I could listen
Yeah.
to this all day.
Yeah.
I said, the theology sucks, but but I love I just live and listen to the music.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
that to be snarky, and the
Yeah.
girl laughed. Okay,
Yeah.
she was a white girl, and so but we'd have these really great conversations. But one of the things that it never got ugly because I kind of said to Trisha and her friends in my class, that class, I said, look, you need to listen and deal with a person like me.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm a I'm an avowed atheist, and you
Yeah.
guys,
Yep.
Christians.
Yep.
And so what you're going to be, we're going to have to discuss this stuff. And what'll happen is, uh, I will help you hone by dealing with me
Yeah.
and telling you why I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can hone your arguments
It's
to
like
really get me.
it's like a debate. It's like a
Well,
respectful
that's
debate,
it.
right?
That's it. That's it. And so I respected their opinion, and I tell
Yeah.
myself,
I don't
uh,
agree, but I respect it.
yeah, yeah. Now sometimes I will tolerate opinions and not respect them. Right? Why? Because
Yeah.
the person's opinions are stupid. I've said that before in one
Yeah.
of my first podcasts.
Yeah.
But by the same token, there are opinions I can respect,
Yeah.
and I said because, like, I respect people who are have a certain amount of dedication
Mhm.
and believe in what they're saying and doing. I'll give you another example. People will complain about priests and nuns, and especially the priests who are, you know, molesting children and things like that.
Mhm.
um, which I get. Okay, I think that's terrible. But I have great respect for and appreciation of anybody who devotes his or her life to something that is going to be ultimately helpful, something they believe strongly in.
Mhm.
So if, for example, in Catholicism, I remember when I was in Parochial school, they used to have these things, signs up on along the blackboard, and they would call they were called the spiritual works of mercy and the corporal works of mercy.
Mhm.
I don't remember the spiritual things of mercy. But I do remember the corporal works of mercy. Things like feed the hungry,
Yeah. Yeah.
clothe the naked, heal the
Yeah.
sick, things
Yeah.
like
As
that.
long as you're doing something good and not
Well,
not
that's exactly
harming
it.
other people.
yeah. So I feel that way about priests and nuns, even though I don't believe what they believe. But
Mhm.
if they're acting in a way that I,
Yeah,
you
that
know,
is
believe,
helpful, not
that's,
harming.
yeah, that they're committed to something positive, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, when we would have these conversations, I made it clear that okay, here's how I came. This is really an exercise in logic and an exercise in, here are my theorems.
Hmm.
Here is how I came to my conclusion about why God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then they would give me theirs, and
Yeah.
the biblical quotes and so forth and so on. And it was very much of a learning experience for
Yeah.
me and for them.
Yeah.
And we both honed our arguments as a class and as a group, as a class and as individuals, I should say.
Yeah.
So, and I always liked that about her. I always felt that she came off and she was very representative in a positive way
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
what I would consider the Black Christian mode
Yeah.
of you know that approach to life. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. She talked highly of you, so I'm excited for you to see that podcast.
Oh yeah, I really would be. I really would be excited. But again, the ultimate thing about my students is that, um, and I want them to know. Okay, I think I mentioned in another one of my first podcasts is that they taught me how to be a much better man and human being and a much better teacher. Okay, because they said this is what we need from you. Okay,
Mhm.
but I also learned so much about their cultures and their lives in that culture that
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known if I really went to let's say an all white affluent school.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's a very very different thing.
Yeah. And I love that because it's a great thing where you can come to a place where you can be open-minded to be able to change your approach and to learn from these kids too, not just teach them these are what's happening in the books. Let's make sure you get good grades and keep it super structured. You treated them like people
Yeah,
and
but see,
human.
the point is, I wanted them to be able to speak freely about the things they believed in with
Yeah.
other people in the class and other people in the school. This is what we're losing in our culture. Losing in our culture is this freedom or this freedom to speak freely
Yes.
without being harassed, harangued,
Yes. Yes.
insulted, shamed,
Yeah.
abused. I mean, used to be able you could have kinds of conversations, and now we're locked into tribes.
Yeah.
And well, my tribe believes this, your tribe is a scumbag tribe because you
Yeah.
believe that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not the way civilized discourse happens. It just
Yes.
doesn't. You know?
Yes. So, I mean, maybe, maybe these podcasts will start helping people, and keep an open mind because I have all types of different people who come on. So some of my
Yep.
friends do believe in God and some people, were changed by, religion. That didn't affect me, but I'm okay to like bring those people on too because they're my friends and that's what you believe. Okay. But, we're human, we're still friends. Like,
Sure.
what changed you? What impacted you? I think that the stories behind everything are interesting, and the stories behind how these people became the adult they are, and
Which
the
which
stories might help somebody.
yeah, which brings me back to your comment earlier about doing a documentary about centralized
Yeah,
uh, students and people in that environment,
yeah,
because I just really it bothers me that Long Island schools are the most segregated schools
yeah.
in
That's
that
crazy.
country.
That's
In
crazy.
that
In the
country.
country,
In the
really?
country. That
Wow,
that means that all these other racist states
wow.
like Arkansas and Alabama and
Yeah,
places like that, you'd say, oh
yeah,
well, they have this really anti-black or
yeah,
other
yeah.
anti-immigrant mentality. American schools, Long Island schools,
Mhm.
Suffolk and Nassau County in particular, the most segregated schools in
Wow,
the
the
country.
country,
In the
in the
country.
country, not just
Now
state.
this and by the way, this is not my opinion. You can look it up.
Google it. Google it,
It-
everybody.
yeah, Google it. Yeah. It's shocking. And again, there are pockets. That goes back to I think in the
Yeah.
previous podcast I said how my black students I would always say, well, okay, so what makes a school good or bad? Okay, on Long Island, and they go, it's good if it's white and it's bad if it's got black people in it.
Yeah,
And I go,
I mean, that
and
in
but
itself
but see- but
is
again,
crazy.
y- the people that you've been interviewing from Central ISIP certainly belie that notion. These are not only good people; these are great people.
They're
These are
bright,
successful
yeah,
people.
super
Yeah,
bright,
I mean,
intelligent, smart, and like race had nothing
absolutely.
to do with it. Yeah,
Absolutely. And of course, how lucky have I been? Because I was dealing, certainly, because of the courses I was teaching predominantly, dealing with the cream of the crop in
yes,
that school district, the cream of the crop.
totally cream of the crop.
No question. They were going to Ivy League schools, like your sister was in Cornell, and
Yeah,
you go
yeah.
to
You
Yale, and
got all of
yeah, we
my
had,
friends who got doctorates and like
yeah,
either,
yeah,
yep. Mhm.
absolutely, absolutely. And this is the tragedy of when I mentioned, oh, you worked at, I worked at CI. Oh, it's a tough school district. What do they mean by tough school district? Black people
Black
there.
people, yeah, other
Okay.
races, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
And
I
yeah.
always tell them, I said, hey, it was a great school. The kids were great. They treated me really, really well, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, my black students in my African American lit classes, a, I taught it twice a year for like, I don't know, 12 to 14 years. I forget how
Yeah,
long it was. They were, they treated me not only with respect, but
yeah,
with absolute affection. I swear
yeah,
to God. I
yeah.
swear
They
to God.
became a fan club.
Yeah, no, they were the best. I mean, and again, because I guess I didn't lay a lot of crap on them. That was I said, hey, I first of all I used to make them laugh, but also I knew a lot of stuff that they never knew about their own culture.
Yeah,
I mean, that was my job. My job, I felt responsible for the fact that okay, I'm the white guy in the room, but there's a lot of they don't know. Look, this is true for white kids. They don't know American history. They really
yeah,
don't. I
yeah.
mean, I don't know what's going on in history classes anymore,
Yeah,
but
I
they
mean,
don't seem to know
there's
American
also
history.
a lot of Asian American history that I didn't know either until like Asian American History Month, and then I see it
Yeah,
on Netflix,
yeah,
and I was like,
yeah.
wow, we were not taught all of these other,
But
facts
I
about
think,
Asian Americans.
yeah, I think they gave me points for trying. You know what I mean? In the sense that, yes, I prepared. I read books. I mean, I have a down in my library downstairs. I'm in my study right now with I got books from Florida, sitting books
Yeah,
over your head, and then I got books all over the place over here. And I mean, I've got hundreds of, I must have thousands of books. Okay,
yeah,
but I have
yeah.
a whole shelf.
Thousands of books that you've forgotten.
That's right. And I remember them because I got the titles to look at on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
shelf.
yeah.
But I have a whole shelf of just all African lit stuff. His books about
Was there any
1500.
Asian teachers in CI?
Yes, we had a Japanese art teacher,
Mm, okay.
Keiko Dunbar, her name
Uh-huh.
was.
Uh-huh.
I don't recall anybody else that was Asian.
I remember one in my years there.
Yeah, well, but she was an art teacher, but you probably didn't have her. You would have had her with. I mean, she was in the same department as Krugy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, but I mean, and I remember. Oh, by the way, after the race riots we had, I talked about in the previous podcast. They made a concerted effort to look for black teachers across
Mm,
the country. Across
yeah,
the
yeah,
country.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I mean, they looked every place, every state they could find them,
yeah.
and they brought in a number of black.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
but I'm saying, and
yeah,
right now this is a problem. Their faculties on that's another thing. Not only are the students white,
yeah,
the majority of the teachers are white.
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
now to get a diversity
Diversity,
among
yeah.
the faculty,
Hmm.
it's I just read an article in Newsday yesterday, the day before. They're saying, well, because so many teachers have been retiring and early and leaving because of COVID, or just terrible conditions, B, or whatever.
Yeah,
They feel, well, okay, now we're going to have openings that we didn't have before, and we might be able to get, uh, you know, a diverse kind of faculty.
hmm,
Now, part of the problem in a lot of these schools has been, and I hate to say it, this goes back to the racist teacher slash administrator thing. There
hmm,
is this sense that somehow uh, teachers of color may not be as good as white teachers.
yeah.
Now, that's not true for everybody. That's not true for
Mhm.
everybody in those administrators in those schools. But there is a number of people who are still saying, well, I don't know. I really don't know. And that's such BS. I can't
Yeah,
believe it. I just
yeah,
can't believe it. Some of the unbelievably bright and celebrated
yeah,
black professors, for example.
yeah,
You got Cornell West, and you got Henry Louis Gates, and you got. I mean, come on, give me a break.
Yeah.
Stop
Yeah.
the
I mean, like
nonsense.
if you really break it down, I mean, like there's so many things that were invented by Black people also that majority of people don't realize that it was invented by Black scientists.
That's right. I forget the guy's name. It's uh, doctor, doctor who came up with, I guess, the blood plasma thing, so that
Mhm.
on the battlefields and stuff or accidents, you can hook it up and
Yeah.
save people's
Yeah,
lives.
there's so many. I
But
don't
right,
know
but
offhand right
here's a
now, but
sad
there's
story.
so many.
Here's a sad story. I wish I
Mhm.
could remember his name now. Here's a sad story. He was in an accident or something in the hospital, and as a black person,
Yeah.
they didn't save him. They let him die, basically.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the great ironies. This is uh, like driving while black. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Driving while black. That's a whole story. But also when they were trying to bring in teachers and make it less like all white, they also were busing Black students into white schools also. Like my partner was one of those Black kids who were bused to white schools in Far Rockaway.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, there was all kinds of white outrage about that. You know,
Yeah, I'm
I mean,
sure.
outrage. I mean, I they're saying, well, wait a second. I mean, you have to remember part of the problem was they lived in those neighborhoods where the schools were white because they wanted to avoid having
Yeah,
black kids in their schools.
yeah,
So now you're forcing these
yeah,
taxpayers, taxpayers in these white school districts to have to deal and have their children deal with black students. Once
yeah,
again, somehow these black students must have these terrible cooties on them, and
yeah,
they're going to be dangerous to their children. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
and so I mean, again, it's fear of the other. I totally
Fear of
get
the
it.
unknown, fear of the unknown.
But at any rate, I have
Yeah,
to say that you guys were lucky where you were, and I was lucky. I could talk about specific students, but we're already going over time.
I
But
know. We just have so
but
much
I
fun,
have to
and
admit,
our time flies when you're having fun.
truthfully, Linda, I have had so many thousands of students,
Yeah,
and probably I have thousands of stories about. I mean, I have probably a story. If you gave me names,
mhm,
I could say I'd have a story about that particular kid.
yeah, yeah,
you know, and not not a lot of stories about the same kid, but I would have this
yeah.
kid. I
One
remember this.
that pops out in your head of each one.
Yeah, I
Well,
remember this kid for this
yeah,
reason. I remember
yeah,
this kid for that reason,
yeah,
and uh, that's a wonderful thing. It's
yeah,
a wonderful thing that a school like Central ISA brought so much to my life personally. I
mhm.
mean, I feel they gratified, but probably selfish in a way that oh God, I was so lucky to have this experience,
But
and
we
so
feel the same way about you, and that's why I
uh,
love these stories because stories really help each other.
hey, look, Linda, you don't have to be nice to me anymore. I'm not giving you a grade. Come
I
on.
know that. I know that. I'm saying it because that's my opinion, and this is my show, so I can say whatever I want.
And on that happy note, I guess we better stop. So, I mean, and I'll
Exactly.
tell you why we have to stop. I need you to post some of the other ones we've done so I can see them and see how
I
they.
know. I know. I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna definitely do it. Thank you so much for joining me again on this like candid conversation, and
Always,
I
always.
appreciate you. And have a great day.
You too. All right. Stay
Okay.
well, and we'll be in touch, huh? Take
Okay.
care.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye now.